We start this broadcast with a news alert coming in. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a review meeting today with the various chief ministers to discuss either the extension of lockdown measures and also what sources tell us is a phased exit strategy from this month-long lockdown that India has been facing. And joining us with more details on this news update is WION's correspondent Siddhant Sibal. Siddhant, over to you. What are your sources telling you? What was discussed in this meeting?
Well, the meeting is still underway, and this is the fourth meeting between the Indian Prime Minister and the state's Chief Minister through video conference. And of course, the focus is on lockdown and how the focus is to make sure that the virus, the COVID crisis does not spread. Let me tell you that the first meeting took place on 20th of March, followed by the second meeting that took place on 2nd of March. Then the third meeting on 11th of April. We also know that the focus this time is to make sure that to take a final call when it comes to extension of the lockdown or not, because we know that the second lockdown, lockdown 2.0, is going to come to an end on 3rd of next month, and the focus will be on to make sure that the virus does not spread, social distancing policies are followed, and also to make sure that the essential needs of the countries are also met. We know that the Indian Prime Minister yesterday during his Mann Ki Baat program talked about how this is a war, this is a youth, he said, and every Indian is a soldier when it comes to fighting this war together. He also talked about the people-driven policies here in India when it comes to the COVID crisis and how the future is at stake because of the current COVID crisis. We know the number of cases of COVID crisis in India have crossed 27,000 and of course 800 deaths, but also the silver lining is that approximately 5,000 people have also been discharged here in India. But by and large, it remains a massive challenge in a very large country, and also to make sure that when it comes to the migrant laborers or poor people, they are not impacted because of lockdown. We have seen visuals also when the lockdown was first announced. So migrants suffering a lot, especially the poor people, because of lack of facilities. But by and large, the government was very proactive, making sure that the migrant workers can be ferried as soon as possible. But by and large, it's a mammoth task, and to make sure that there is a coordination between the central government and the states. So these video conferences have been happening, and the Indian Prime Minister has been talking about what should be the attempt. We know that a coordinated attempt is needed when it comes to making sure that the policies which are decided here in Delhi and in various state capitals, the provincial capitals, are followed through and made sure that the lockdown measures are followed, because there were reports of certain states not able to handle the lockdown measures. But by and large, we know that the MHA has stepped in and also sent teams to these specific states.
Siddhant, the lockdown essentially ends this week. It ends on Sunday, and today being the Monday, and it's only a few days left now before this lockdown ends. And we've already seen Indian government take a few steps. They have allowed shops to open in rural India and in a bid to revive some sort of economic activity, because the country has been in a state of lockdown for over a month now. So the government is taking measures to restart some sort of economic activity in areas where there are no coronavirus cases so far. But sources have told us, and various reports also suggest, that all chief ministers are in favor of a graded exit from the lockdown, isn't it, rather than a complete lifting of all restrictions?
Well, things are unlikely to go back to normal as they were before, because it will not be a sudden announcement announcing that lockdown has been removed and people can go out. It will be an incremental step when it comes to opening of the lockdown measures. And of course, we know that the Indian government has allowed a relaxation for only green areas. That means areas where there have not been any cases of COVID. But when it comes to the containment areas or the red zones, the harsh, strict lockdown continues. And that remains the focus of the government. In fact, when I talk about Delhi, which is the national capital where a number of cases have been reported, we know that the measures have not been implemented, the relaxation measures, primarily because the government here believes that it is too early to take relaxation measures because that might lead to spread of the virus. But by and large, if we look at the national level, the policy continues on making sure that there is a balance between lockdown and the economic activity, because we know that it's been only more than 1 month since the lockdown has been announced, and it's going to have a major impact on the economic growth, on the economic activity, that is going to impact the most the lower class or the lower strata of the society. We have been talking about that. We have seen the visual as well. So, of course, there is a certain attempt to make sure that there is a balance, but also the focus is that when it comes to lives, saving lives is bigger than when it comes to the economy. So, on that terms, the government will make sure that relaxation happens, but in a graded way.
Absolutely. Siddhant Sibal getting us all the details. Prime Minister Modi holding yet another meeting with chief ministers of various states to review the situation in the country after a month-long lockdown. Remember, this lockdown 2.0 ends this Sunday, the coming Sunday. So Prime Minister Modi holding a review meeting with various chief ministers. What sources are telling us, what Siddhant has been telling us, is that chief ministers are in favor of a graded exit. So far, economic activities have been allowed just a few days back in green zones. There are areas that have not seen any coronavirus cases so far. This is a bid by the Indian government to revive some sort of economic activity because the country has been in a state of a lockdown for more than a month. It remains to be seen what final exit strategy does India adopt once this lockdown 2.0 ends on the 3rd of next month. Siddhant, one final question before I can let you go. Do we have any confirmation on how many chief ministers were part of this meeting with the Prime Minister?
Well, in this meeting, usually all the chief ministers participate because this is a very important meeting and usually no one boycotts, even if they do not like the center as such. They will be participating in it. So we saw in the last three cases as well, the last three meetings which took place between the Indian Prime Minister and the chief ministers of various states, there was a complete participation. In fact, after the meeting, few of the chief ministers also tweeted and issued releases also about the meeting, about what they proposed in the meeting. But by and large, the message is that there should be a coordinated attempt between Delhi and rest of the capitals of the states to make sure that the policies are implemented. There is no mismanagement which takes place, because these measures need to be implemented in a coordinated manner so that there is no problems arising out of it, because we know that without a coordinated approach, this might lead to a lot of problems, especially for many of the people who are in the lower strata, because we know that when it comes to giving you an example about how the migrant workers wanted to go back, that required a coordinated response between various states and the central government. So these kinds of meetings are necessary to make sure that the approach, the domestic approach when it comes to dealing with the crisis is one. And also we have seen how the cabinet secretary has been meeting and writing to various chief secretaries. So this becomes a part of the national policy when it comes to dealing with this pandemic, the COVID pandemic.
Siddhant Sibal, WION's principal diplomatic correspondent, getting us all the details. The meeting between Prime Minister and Chief Ministers is still underway. We're awaiting the final outcome of this meeting. And remember, the lockdown 2.0 in India ends this Sunday. The Chief Ministers are in favor of a graded exit, an exit strategy from this lockdown. Remember, just yesterday, in his address to the nation during his radio broadcast, Man Ki Baat, Prime Minister Modi had said that India's fight against the coronavirus is people-driven, and the world will remember India's fight against coronavirus as a people-driven fight, and that every Indian is a part of this battle. Let's shift our focus to the worst affected nation in the world right now, that is America. New York, which is the coronavirus epicenter of United States of America, has recorded its lowest daily death toll in almost a month now. The state recorded 367 new deaths in a day, making it the lowest daily death toll since March the 31st.
We are now back to where we were on March 31st, before we started this dramatic increase in the number of cases. We're still watching. Big questions: how fast does that number continue to come down? First, does that number continue to come down?
Meanwhile, Governor Andrew Cuomo said that New York will be reopening on the 15th of May. He said that businesses in specific regions will be allowed to resume operations in phases.
The pause is statewide until May 15th, right? Then you have the CDC guidance that says total hospitalization is declining for 14 days, okay? So we get to May 15th. What regions have seen a decline for 14 days? Well, we're assuming we will have seen a decline in the state for 14 days. But what states what regions of the state have seen a decline for 14 days, that's where you will start the conversation to get to phase one in that region.
New York and several other states are gradually moving towards economic reopening as experts warn that the United States unemployment rate may rise to 16% by the second half of this year. Remember, it was only 10% during the Great Depression, and this year unemployment rate may climb to 16%. In just over a month, over 26 million people have applied for unemployment benefits in the United States of America.
You know, I think that the next couple of months are going to look terrible. You're going to see numbers that are as bad as anything that we've ever seen. I think the unemployment rate is going to jump to a level probably around 16% or even higher in the next jobs report.